is about the International Council of Ophthalmology and Professor David Taylor. I knew him as Mr. David Taylor in England days. He's going to give you a lot of information about ICO, and Nicola Peter is the examination executive. And Chittaranjan is the local
candidates.
he's in Arabic. So Professor David Taylor going to tell you all about ICO. Many of you may be receiving information about ICO.
Introduction. It was a great surprise to see you here, and terrific. And we're very much looking forward to this. It's we've been to the AIOS now. I think this is the 5th or 6th time, and it's actually one of my favourite meetings. And I'm not just saying that because we're here, but it's a terrific meeting. The content is excellent, and the cost is, if you compare it with the American Academy or the welcome. So we're going to talk about two things: the ICO exams and ICO fellowships, and then various other things. We have Dr. Ashok Grover, who's an ex-president of the AIOS and a senior ophthalmic plastic surgeon, will be fairly critical. Nothing's perfect, and so we're expecting to hear some home truths. And I'd like to introduce again Nicola Peter, who's actually really helped turn around the ICO exams from where they were about 7 years ago, which was very tricky. Now we've got a very robust series of exams, which we'll tell you about, and then there's me. So this is what we're going to talk about. A bit about the ICO, then go through the exams, and then talk about the fellowships at the end. Can I just have some idea, any first-year trainees? Anybody first-year trainees? Second-year trainee? Third-year trainees? Post-training teachers? You're post-training. Okay. So any teachers? Any lecturers or teachers? Okay, so we know roughly who we are. Fantastic. So what is the ICO? All these international things used to make me yawn, to be honest, because as soon as you mention international, it usually means some kind of non-government organisation. It's not very dynamic, but basically it's been going for 150 years or more. It's a Swiss not-for-profit organisation, and the main thrust of it, we do lots and lots of things, but the main thrust is in education. It's international. We are not an American organisation or a British organisation or anything. At the moment, the president is an American, an Egyptian is the vice president, Belgian is the secretary general, the treasurer currently is an Australian, and the executive officer who goes sort of on as a permanent position is American. The board is from 22 countries in all regions. To find out about an organisation, you really need to know where the money comes from. And you'll be surprised to know that it comes from you. Okay, if you're a member of the AIOS, you have paid a certain amount of money. It depends on from one country to another. The maximum is 3 Swiss francs or $3 per head, and the minimum is $1. So it'll be somewhere to that. So of course, that doesn't sound very much, but of course there's many tens of thousands of ophthalmologists who belong. It's actually the societies that belong. So that's the big thing. We have small investments. We get private donations, quite a lot actually, and donations from industry. There's a charitable foundation in the United States called the ICO Foundation, which brings in a lot of money. Drug and Instrument Company, and then the World Ophthalmology Congress is owned by the ICO, and that makes a fairly healthy profit. And the next one of those, if you are feeling rich enough to go to Japan, it's a very nice meeting, and next one is in a couple of months' time. And then there's various other things which are, just to give you an idea of the sort of breadth, a task force, quite a big task force between Pakistan and Nigeria on a task force on uncorrected refractive errors, which of course is one of the biggest causes of vision impairment. The classification of diseases, Sub-Saharan group, because Sub-Saharan Africa has the worst problems with blindness, industry liaison committee, advocacy, ethics, world ophthalmology, residence development, so again an educational thing, and then some terrific courses for directors of programs. So if you eventually become a program director, it's a good way to go and learn how to get the best for your trainees. And then we have programs, continuing professional development, e-education, standards, guidelines, but now there's the three important ones really are education, the various educational projects, and the two that we're going to talk about is examinations, of which I'm the director for the next couple of months, and then the directorship is being taken over by Simon Keatley. And then fellowships, which many of the more senior ones of you will be interested in. So the first question is, what on earth are examinations for? You think it's an awful big thing in your life. What are you doing it for? And I think it's important, really, that it's really to make you learn, to improve, not just to prove that you've done it. You see what I mean? So the whole thing about examinations is, in a way, is not the certificate, but what has gone into your intellectual achievements that will, of course, if they're done in the right way, will be lifelong. And the ICO exams have been going since 1994. We're now in 80 countries, 140 centres. In 2013, there were 3,900 examinations. Nicola and I have a bet on what we're going to be this year. It's probably going to be somewhere around 4,100. Nicola thinks it's going to be 4,200, but I think I'm going to be winning the bet, but we'll see. And that's about 2,500 candidates. And the nice thing about the ICO exams is that the cost depends on the gross national income per capita. So if you're in a rich country, you pay quite a lot of money for it. If you live in Burkina Faso or one of those countries that is so poor, and this is Dr. Ashok Grover, who I've already introduced. Thank you very much for coming, and it's very nice to see you. Really nice audience of mostly the trainees, and so that's good.
I introduced Dr. David Taylor on behalf of your show.
So if you come from a very poor country, you pay about sort of an eighth of the amount of people in very rich countries. And so India comes somewhere in the middle. There are 4 tiers. And again, they are international. They're not written from a particular country's perspective. It's not a developing world exam. It's not an advanced world exam. It's this committee comes from all over the place, and the question writers, this is actually just an idea, but there's some of the countries that have contributed questions, because it's quite useful to get a different perspective on the actual questions. And quite simply, we have 3 exams. One is the foundation assessment, online, and that's for year 1. The standard examinations, which have been going the longest, from year 2 to 4, you have to start with optics and refraction, basic sciences, clinical sciences. You can actually take them any time, but this is, I think you'd be foolish to take the advanced exams really for year 5. So the foundation assessment is, for instance, it's 84 questions, and you can actually take 28 hours doing it. So it's a learning experience. You can open up the web browser, and it's criterion reference. In other words, we set the standard. 100% of people could pass, 100% could fail, but we aim to get somewhere around 85% that looking at completely different things. And that's again is criteria reference. They're about 50%. It's really a tough exam, about 50% pass. And so Nicola's going to start off by telling you about the new foundation assessment, which is a very exciting exam.
Thank you. So the foundation is either prior to ophthalmology, so if you're looking to get into ophthalmology as a speciality, or in your first year of training. And this assessment is online, so you can log on anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's based on the syllabus of essential ophthalmology questions. And there isn't any monitoring, so there's no coordinator, no invigilator. You can sit in a room on your own, and the only thing you can't do is take your senior colleague in to answer the questions for you, because we do have security features installed in the system that do monitor how you take the assessment. The good thing about this is that you get instant results, so after each section we give you an analysis on how well you've performed. So this assessment has 84 questions in 6 groups, 14 questions per group, and you have up to 20 minutes to answer each question. This means that we expect that you would know at least 2 of the answers, and it will give you an extra the time to look up the other 2 in the book or the web browser. So the assessment is 28 hours. Now you don't have to do this continuously, I'm not asking you to stay up all night. You can log in and out. So finish one question, log out, go and play tennis, go and play football, read a book, and then come back and you can answer the next question. So the area of the syllabus includes international medics, ethics and good practice, and also basic design, construction, use of instruments, and commonly used tests in ophthalmology. So as you can see, it's a wide coverage. Now I'm not a trained ophthalmologist, so I need your help with these questions. But we'll go through some examples that are actually in this year's assessment. So concerning the testing of visual acuity in adults, which of the following statements are true and which are false? If a patient only sees at 20 feet a Snellen's letter that should be seen at 100 feet, the visual acuity is 20 over 100. Now, I need your help. True or false? Any answers?
True. Everybody say true. Good.
That's true, well done. The Snellen letter B is easier to resolve than L because it is more familiar with those with English as a first language. Perfect, you're doing well. The best corrected visual acuity in a patient with an abnormal head posture, the visual acuity should be tested only with the head in a straight head position. Brilliant. The testing with a pinhole gives worse visual acuity than without it, as central scotoma is the likely diagnosis. Perfect, so you're doing well. So knowledge, after all, is not just a matter of being right, but knowing that you're right. And the exams committee looked at this, and we decided that after each question in the assessment, we would ask you how certain you are that you got the question right. Now this is a form of negative marking, but it's also positive marking. So if you mark true, we know the answer is true from the question, and you mark 3, you get +3. Okay, so first one. False, you've got that correct, and you've marked a 3 again, so you're really confident that you've got that question correct. Another +3. So at the moment you're doing really well, so you're looking positive. So you've got this question correct again, so you've answered false, but you're not so sure with this one, so you've marked 2. So you're hesitating slightly, but you've got it right, so you've got +2. The last question you've got wrong. You've marked 4, so the answer was true, and you've marked 3, so you're really confident that you got this right. And unfortunately you get -3. So as you can see, positive marking, if you were to mark 1, we award you +1 if you get it correct, and if you're incorrect, we don't take any marks away. And that's like you're being in a clinical situation and you're not sure, so you go and ask your more senior colleague. So we don't penalise for that scenario. So you've got +5 for this question, and if you continue doing this, then you're more than likely to pass with a good grade. So another question I'm going to need help with. So concerning the slit limb image shown, which of the following statements are true and which are false? So it shows a one-piece intraocular lens. Perfect. You're going to pass it. posterior capsular rectus is perfectly axial. Fundus reflex is abnormal. And there is regrowth of lens fibers. Perfect. So this assessment has pictures, scenarios, and also video. We have videos on the system. And as you can see, it allows you to look at the video and then answer the question. And this is actually a question in the assessment at the moment. So the video in question 52 is a slowed down image of the eye movements of a 12-year-old boy and the acquired disorder in his chiasm and ventricle horizontal and rotary eye movements. Concerning this patient's nystagmus, which of the following statements are true and which are false? So it has a tumour in the region of the optic chiasm. True. Now if you were really confident on that answer, then you would have got -3. Ependyoma is the most common pathology. Good. Your eye movements in this patient are pendular. True. And he is likely to be blind.
I think the nice thing about that is that that's actually a very difficult question for a first-year trainee. Extremely difficult question. But if you just Google chiasm rotary nystagmus, you get up seesaw. And seesaw nystagmus is, at that age, it will take you straight to optic glioma. So in your 20 minutes, you can do it. So I mean, actually, a lot of you seem to be onto it already. But that's the point about the confidence indicator. You're going to lose a lot of marks if you're not absolutely certain. It's just like being in the clinic. You don't sort of say, "Oh, what am I going to give? I'm going to give somebody's got anaphylactic shock. I'm going to give him some adrenaline. How do I give it? Oh, I know. I give it intravenously. We can give it intravenously. You're going to kill him." You in the clinic all the time are making decisions about which you have to be precise. And so it's forcing you to do that. Sorry.
So as Professor Taylor said, the clues are in the question. So look for the words and then put them into Google and look them up. Now you can pay for this assessment online by credit card, by debit card. And once you've completed a section within the assessment, then you can log back out. Then you study in your everyday institution, and then you can take the next section. So actually, you can choose which section you start first. You don't have to start with A. You can do E, go back to B. It's what you're learning at that time. Now, this is an example of what it looks like on the system. As you can see, true, false, not certain, reasonably certain, very certain, and time to answer. So the clock ticks down at 20 minutes. So you know where you are. It tells you how many days you have left to take the assessment and how many questions you have left in that section. Once you've completed that section, it says thank you, your answers are all checked in. And then it will tick the subsection that you've just completed, tell you when you've finished, and it tells us how long you took to take that section. So the results, we issue a certificate for everyone that passes, and we have an 85% pass rate. And that ranges from A star to D, and then obviously F is failure, but nobody's got an F yet. So you can take this assessment as well as many times as you like. So if you happen to get a B and you're not too happy and you think you can do better, then you can go back online, go through the system of paying, and then try to achieve a better score. And this is good for institutions because they can set the grade for you and tell you that if you need to go on to the next level, then you need to get a B or an A. And it's also fun amongst your friends and colleagues because you can compete against each other.
And if you look at the bottom of most of these slides, you'll see our website. If you go to the website, you can try the exam, the foundation assessment. You get 5 questions, a picture, a video, and some statements, so you get an idea of what it's like. And you can see how to use the confidence indicator. So that's all good fun. Okay, so the standard examinations are the ones that we've been doing since 1994, and we do these in countries all over the world. In India, we have 12 centres from which which the exam is administered by some extremely dedicated coordinators. And but as you can see, it's absolutely all over the world, changing all the time. The basic sciences and the optics and refraction are translated from English into Chinese, French, Portuguese and Spanish. Obviously, nobody in India needs to have it translated. The clinical sciences and the advanced exam and the foundation assessment are at the moment only in English. If the demand is there, we would translate more. So, starting at the beginning, you decide you want to take the exam. We'll talk later about why you might want to take the exam. And you can get all these things from the website. You can download the application form, then you have to fill it out, put it on a photograph, etc. And but mostly these are done through the coordinator, and you can also download eSource, which is a PDF with a bunch of mostly the most important thing about it is the free access websites. There are hundreds now of terrific websites that you don't have to pay a penny for, that combined with clinical work give you a terrific grounding. So the first type of exams are the ones that you take in the first year or two of training. You can take them any time, but basic sciences and then optics and refraction, and that has a different type of question type to the clinical ones. These are multiple true-false questions with a statement or statements plus a diagram or picture, and then you have 5 true-false options. And they're in all the subjects basically that you would expect. And here's, I think actually this is quite a difficult one again, but it's the one that makes you think a bit. Concerning the development of the optic nerve, which of the following statements are true and which are false? So it's a binary decision. Retinal ganglion cells are the first retinal cells to appear in development. Actually, from progenitor cells, the retinal ganglion cells are most posterior. They appear first, and the others all appear later on. Retinal ganglion cells first appear anteriorly. In other words, are they away from the disc or near to the disc? You just think, kind of common sense. And if you know a little bit about, remember how the axons grow over the old cells, you can guess that they first appear posteriorly near the optic disc, and in fact near the macula. And retinal ganglion cells are initially about 50% crossed in the chiasm. You've got to read the question carefully, because you'll immediately say, of course they are, yes, we all know that. It's initially, and this is about the development, initially they're mostly crossed. Okay, it's only later in development that they become, in the end, about 50%. So precision in reading the question. Think before you write. So that's false. Growth cones guide retinal ganglion cell axons to the lateral genicular body. You need to know a little bit about, you need to have read something or heard something about any axon has a, when it moves, goes to its destination, has a growth cone on it. So obviously retinal ganglion cells have growth cones as well. So that's true. And then the last one, by birth, up to 70% of retinal ganglion cells are subject to apoptosis. Now, you've got to have read something about that, because apoptosis is not, although I think it's something that's in every medical student's mind now, it may not be in the minds of more senior people, including some trainees who take this. So you've really got to learn about these things. Apoptosis is kind of programmed cell death. And yes, up to 70% of ganglion cells that are born die off in the process of modelling. So that's true. This one, most people seem to find more easy. Which of the following characteristics of malignant cells? Nuclear pleomorphism. We don't use, we don't leave Greco-Roman words, origin words, unexplained. So pleomorphism, in case people don't know that, which is quite likely, is many-shaped. And yes, malignant nuclei are of many shapes. They're odd-looking nuclei. A loss of contact inhibition. Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah, that's strict. A lot of anchorage dependent. Yeah, they go all over the place. Hyperplasia, an increase in number of cells. Well, that's not a characteristic, that's a normal characteristic. So hyperplasia is false.
Uncontrolled would have been. Uncontrolled, I would have said true.
Yeah, if it was uncontrolled, that would be fine. But just an increase in the number. Hyperplasia is just the increase in the number of cells. And a decrease in the nuclear to cytoplasmic. False, exactly, it's an increase. We've got some pretty smart people here. There seem to be more correct ones than incorrect. They'll have to make the questions more difficult. Okay, so in the clinical sciences, this is different. Because in a way you're testing something different. It's a single best answer. So you have a statement scenario or a picture of a scenario and then 4 options. You need to choose the most correct or the least not. It's usually most. We try not to sort of use least and not, etc. But because in clinical things, you're making a value judgment. So it's not yes, no, it's more or less. And so, and the subjects are what you would expect. One of the things is we do include ICO guidelines, so it's worth looking at the ICO guidelines these are clinical guidelines of management, and because they make easy questions and they're actually just introduces them to you. So if you're in the clinic and you just think perhaps I need some updating on guidelines of management, then you've got access to that on the ICO website. Now, here's the sort of question. Okay, the day after an apparently uncomplicated extracapsular cataract extraction, ECI, the anterior chamber is very shallow and the intraocular pressure is 4 millimeters of mercury. No leakage is detected using fluorescein. Siegel's test. The Siegel's test is known to most ophthalmologists who come from a sort of English language background in ophthalmology, but if you ask a Chinese person what Siegel's test is, they don't have a clue what you're talking about. So we explain that. What would be the most appropriate action? And the answer to this is that all of them could be a perfectly appropriate action. So you tighten the wounds. Don't forget, this is the day after an apparently uncomplicated. Tighten all the wound sutures and suture the side port incision. You can use carbonic anhydrase inhibitors like Diamox, etc. You can use subcutaneous in a pad for up to 48 hours. You can apply tissue adhesive to the edge of the wound. Now, any of those could be, but there's one that is, which, does everybody like one of those best? 3, absolutely. Common sense. I mean, you and I know that there must be somebody who's going to start putting tissue adhesive on the edge, but you and I know that stays the day afterwards. You wouldn't be doing that in that clinical situation at all. Just another point is, here's this question: which of the following statements about proven treatments for high fever is correct? Again, all of them are correct. There's one thing that's outstanding. Total bed rest is essential for all high fevers. Systemic immunopropionic acid prevents recurrence. Topical atropine 1% speeds resolution in small high fevers. Patching the affected eye reduces resolution time. You've got to think about the question because it's proven. All of the other ones so number 3 is correct, number 2 is correct, but that's because it's the only one that's been subjected to actually 3 RCTs, or randomized controlled trials. The others are perfectly good ways of doing it, and many of your bosses will have told you, yes, this is the one way to do it. Any of them are okay, but that's the only one that's actually been proven. So you need to read the question rather carefully. I'm not sure, to be honest, how much it's used today, but that's the point about it. Now Nicola is going
this exam in 2010 and then it went live in 2011. It requires a high standard of current knowledge and it tests competence, precision, practical ability and decision making. It's up to date, this exam. It covers a wide range of subjects including community health, community medicine and public health, international medical ethics and ICO clinical guidelines. So we add one question on clinical guidelines and also basic science subjects. There's 85 questions in this exam, 10 of which are extended matching and 75 contains statement, scenario and picture based. And these questions have 4 stems, multiple true, false. And each question, again, like the foundation assessment, has a confidence indicator. So again, we're asking you how certain you are whether you've got this question correct. So these are the answers, and again, like I showed you previously, mark your answers, mark how certain you are. First question we've got correct, and +3, because we're really certain that we've got this correct. Question B, we've got incorrect, but we've marked 1, and as I explained before, you can't lose marks for this. We don't penalise you for not being certain, but you could possibly, if you were correct, gain 1 mark. So if you're unsure, I would suggest you can put down 1. You're not going to pass the exam if you keep doing that, but you've got a chance of getting 1 mark. You're not going to lose any. So -2 and +3. So for this you get +4. Now if you continue like this, you're on the borderline of passing. So you need to really be confident in your answers at this level. So again, I need your help with this question. This is an example of an extended matching question. So you have a passage. So in the clinical history below about a patient with trigeminal neuralgia, some words or parts of sentences are missing. You need to match the missing words or sentences with the most appropriate word or sentence below. So what we do is we give you a selection of answers, so it's there in front of you, and you need to fill in the gap. So 62-year-old A. So A, as you can see, could be heroin addict, male or female. In previously good health, presents with a 3-year history of severe pain in the middle part of the right side of the patient's face. Now, anyone like to guess on answer A for me? There's a heroin addict, male or female. Go on, have a go. Perfect, well done. So it's on the right side of the patient's face, and it's 5 to 8 times a day, 30 to 50 times, or once a day. Okay, so this is 5 to 8 times a day, but thank you for having a go. So the pain is a prolonged electric shock lasting, and it's up to 20 seconds, making the patient groan out loud, clench the face, and is often triggered by a 12-year-old man with a 6-year history of unilateral leukorrhea, serious retinal detachment, and hyphus vulva. The red arrow points to an area showing a high magnification in figure B. The green arrows point to VD blood vessels. Which of the following statements are true and which are false about this patient? Now, all the words in red are those words that so non-cellular part figure B shows cholesterol cleft. Any answers? Body has a germline XP11.4 mutation.
What's the XP11 mutation? It's a pretty difficult question, but basically it's Norris disease. But he's a normal boy, so he obviously doesn't have a germline mutation. So, thank goodness it was false. Yes.
So there may be some somatic mutation in the Nori gene, so as Professor had mentioned the Nori gene.
Yeah, this is the advanced exam, so you'd be expected to be reading a bit about a wide number of subjects, and this is a dramatic finding about now about 6 years ago, that actually in Coates disease they have a retinal
Disease is bilateral, it's not Coates disease. Okay, it's not quite true, but it's so 25% clearly that's not true.
So candidates who are successful in passing the advanced exam with a local face-to-face, so a local clinical exam, and will be given the post-number acronym FICO. Now, the security of all of our exams is high. We have trusted coordinators, like Dr. Grover, and trusted invigilation. The ICO also carry out spot checks, so we don't tell the centres that we're going to arrive on the day of the exam, but we send out our committee and do spot checks on several centres. We also have high-tech security software when marking the papers. So you mark your OMR form, and we put that through a system, and it also picks out the same collusion, the same answers, the same incorrect answers for your centre and compared to other centres. So all papers and all documentation that come back into the office are checked. So they're actually checked by hand first and then processed through the machine. And anyone to be found cheating with severe penalties. So how much are the fees? So we charge a set rate for individual bookings, and as some of you know who have applied for the exam, if you apply directly to the ICO, then there is a fee set for each examination. And these are set in Swiss francs. Once you're going to pay, you can transfer them into US dollars. We take both currencies. We offer reductions to certain regions, to countries, and that's based on the gross national income per capita. And we have 4 tiers that we level those in. And you have to gain from this reduction, you have to apply within a group. So you can go through your coordinator. Some coordinators collect everyone's application forms and you pay them, and then they pay the ICO in one payment. Or you can get with 3 of your friends, we class a group as 4 or more, 3 of your friends, and send one payment along with your application forms. So we need all your application forms in with that payment. We also offer bursary applications for those candidates who really are struggling. So this year we have candidates in Syria, due to the conflict out there, that really can't afford to meet the fee requirements, and they can apply for a bursary application. So for candidates in India who apply in the groups, as I said, 4 or more candidates or through your coordinator, we reduce the fees quite considerably. And we're able to do this because we receive one payment into the ICO account. I understand that candidates in India have had problems this year with making the one payment, but next year we also are introducing credit card online payments to be able to go on, pay for the exam, confirmation will be sent to us, and then you'll submit your application form. So the process should actually be easier as of next year.
I'd like to introduce, well, I don't think you need any introduction, Dr. Grover, but he's been a coordinator in Delhi, and a terrific one, like actually all our coordinators, but so he's going to give some observations from his perspective. So, Dr. Grover. That one, I think.
David and Nicola with us, and it's great that this is not the one. This is the wrong talk. Put in the wrong session.
Telling from a candidate's point of view only. Currently, I am a senior resident in Arvind Eye Hospital, Madurai. So, just a trivia. In 1857, the Indian Revolution began as a mutiny of sepoys, and also at the same time, 150 ophthalmologists from 24 countries convened in Brussels. So, this is the starting of ICO. Here, I want to differ from you, sir. You told 1851, but this is the data from ICO website. So anyway, for students, I will be talking ICO exams, and fellowships will be in detail. They will be dealt with. So why ICO in addition to a PG degree? Already we are doing some MD, MS or DMB or DO. So why ICO in addition? First of all, international standard qualification. That's definitely, that's everybody will agree with it. And we can add it to our CV. FICO we can add it. There is no doubt about that. And obviously this will distinguish ourselves from our friend circle. Like we might have seen our seniors and all. So like definitely it brings some difference. And scope for ICO fellowship obviously, because when we entered into MBBS, then we thought that it's okay MBBS and then it's over. Then comes obviously we have to do PG. Then after ophthalmology, PG is over. Then we have to go for fellowship. So it obviously gives some extra edge for ICO fellowship. And leadership development. Regarding this, we can in AIOC also we are having leadership. We can see in detail. They are also having some criteria. They are giving some privilege for this. And here comes out. Will it help me in my job in India or abroad? Like, will I get some extra edge above others, those who are not having it? That I want to ask, and I think in the next session, like in my next speaker, he will clarify it. And what are the difficulties that we face? The practical difficulties only. The exam fee, obviously, we are getting our salary or stipend only, and it's not uniform all over India. As we know, some parts of India we get a very good this stipend, but some parts everybody will agree that it's very less. And how many of us are DNB residents, DNB candidates, National Board of Examination? So, we know that recently, just 1 month before, they have revised the fee structure. So, first year, second year, and third year trainees, they will get 25, 27, and 29 per month. That's 1 month. And secondary DNB, they will get 27 and 20. Like, I think everybody knows it. I have done my first review. And those who don't know, you please go and ask the institute. So, group concession is a very good idea, but for that we need 4 or more. Sometimes, I have seen my friends, suppose they are in a group of 3, they can make it 4. Then I think we can ask, we can directly communicate with Nicola Mom. I have communicated, she was very cooperative, she answered everything. So we can communicate with her directly. And any specific book to read. When they said the protocol along with our hall ticket, so many book names are written. Like I give you a practical example. The basic science that we give, Ferris, Forrester and Elkington for refraction, American Academy and one multiple choice question that Chinese author book was there. That is sufficient, but so many book names are written. So I think there if it is written that must read type books, then it will again minimize, because we are doing it in addition to our residency program. So some institutes are very busy, the residents are very busy. So any specific preparation in addition to the regular? Here I want to tell about MCQ, or in advanced we saw there will be a practical question and some blanks will be there, we have to fill it. So this type of question answers are there for our practice, but I think the number of question answers should be increased slightly more so that it will be, exposure will be more. And exam center, 12 exam centers as you told, it's a privilege for the candidate who is there in that particular city. So if it can be increased, then I think it will be good for other centers also, other centers. And this is a funny, this may look funny. I know that after advanced only, after passing the advanced exam only, we can add the FICO acronym. But many times our friends will be talking, if not part 3 only, I have cleared part 2, then it's obviously not. Like we have to clear the part 3, that is the advanced, after that only we can add the acronym. Then this is the additional thing, like sometimes they ask you about FICO or FRCS. If FICO, then I want to jump to FRCS, then what I do. This is also again from the data only, from ICO website. Exemption from FRCS part 1, FICO, basic science and theoretical application reflection we have cleared. And part 2, if MCQ paper we have cleared, then FRCS part 2, the MCQ paper we are exempted from. Then ICO fellowships, it's written very in detail. So, one thing I want to emphasize, they have written it multiple times, promising young ophthalmologists from developing countries less than 40 years. And I think all of us belong to that group. And ICO 3-month fellowship they are having, and these are all 1-year fellowship. And in 1-year fellowship, 633 and 363 they are having, like 3 months in the national center, then regional center, then 3 months internationally, or 633 whatever. So this one I want to a bit clarification on this. Like I have gone through it, but I want the next speaker to bit elaborate on this. So this is the concluding. The encouraging factors about it are our seniors, already acquired seniors. Like we can ask them, and most of the seniors I have asked. Here I want to differ from Dr. Taylor one point. You told that after 5 years only we can sit in the advanced exam, but I have my seniors in the residency only in the 3 year or 4 year they have cleared the part 3. So they are really, they encourage us. And group concessions and group discussions also. That is very important. Like if we are in a group, not only for concession and also for group discussion, that really helps and saves time also. And fellowships obviously I have told about. And it will have to see our CV differently. And can appear in FRCs with exemption from some papers. Thank you.
Yeah, and they've been here so often to promote this examination, and it's been great to have their presence, and they've worked so hard to make this an examination which is useful to all the young people who are now increasingly showing a much greater interest in this exam, as is evident from your presence here. We found that there's a surge in interest in the last 2 years, and we have a much larger number of applicants, and there must be some reason for that. And I'll try and put some of those things in perspective. It was nice to have the perspective of the candidates, and he's put together some of the most useful points. I'll reiterate some of them. You have been introduced to what the ICO represents, and it is the most representative body of ophthalmologists in the world. And since its inception in 1995, the exam has gained a lot of ground. How do I see these exams? These exams, the advantage is that they are very relevant. A lot of effort has gone into making sure that it represents all the aspects that it should, including professionalism, including ethics, including the specialities, including the all-round personality of an individual. It has been standardized with a lot of effort. A lot of brainstorming sessions have gone into making sure that it is an exam which is extremely well standardized, and it turns out to be most useful to the candidates. It adds to one's confidence if one knows that one has qualified in an internationally standardized examination. In addition to all that you undergo in your residency and many of the very good examinations that you do pass, but this is an additional confirmation of your ability to yourself. That is the one advantage, and that's the reason why I think this is the major factor which has helped in this exam gaining ground in India. Also, the other important thing that it helps with is, as it was pointed out, it is an enabling examination for qualification to FRCS with the basic science and optics examination, exempting you from the part 1 of the FRCS class scope and the clinical component, the multiple choice component of the part 2 can be exempted once you've done the clinical science examination. And of course, the addition of AIOC acronym has added a lot to the weight of this exam, and a lot of you aspire for this acronym. And its relevance, its weightage in selecting you for the ICO fellows, subspecialty fellowships is another added advantage. So to repeat things, the candidate benefits when he prepares for the exam. What I found most useful is that when our residents appear in their second year, they in a way go through the entire subject of basic sciences, anatomy, physiology, pathology, and the optics, so that they have at least covered that ICO gives you an increased credibility and also an added advantage when you apply for jobs internationally. This is now a global world. Many of you do travel abroad, and some of you settle abroad, and the added FICO is a boost to your prospects of getting a much better settlement. Now we have spoken about the fellowship. Now the question was about the SARC fellowship. Now this is the ICO SARC fellowship has only come about during this year. This was the first year when the candidates applied for it, and 2 candidates have been selected this year, and there are the great advantages that this is for people from SARC region, and there will be 12 candidates from the SARC region who will get the benefit of this fellowship. And a great advantage is that it will have full 1-year training in the subspecialty, which makes you and gives you a hands-on experience, which makes you fit to come back and start your own service. Of course, preference is given to people who will come back to institutions so that they can benefit a lot of people, they can train a lot of other people in those subspecialties. So if you want advanced training in a subspecialty, this is the fellowship to go for. It has a 3-month component in the country of your origin. If say you are from Maldives or you're from Sri Lanka, you can have first 3 months in your country, 6 months in another center in the region, which is an advanced center, say in Madurai in India, and then 3 months internationally in US or UK or Australia. So this is which will give you the final refinement. So this is the SARC fellowship, which is now come about. How does the institution benefit from having their candidates appear for the ICO exams? It promotes the academic environment because candidates are keen on learning those things which will help them clear their ICO exam, and they therefore become more proficient in basic and clinical sciences. And the institution also benefits in the improvement in their clinical work as a result of the better training and the education programs. There is a greater incentive for people to be involved in their academic and scientific activities, and therefore the institution benefits overall. Also, when the candidates go for fellowships and come back, as I said, it is the institution which benefits, both in developing the subspecialties and also in the matter of training and teaching in subspecialties. So this is therefore the added benefit, the multiplier effect of ICO exams going on to ICO fellowships. So that makes sure that ICO exams have become an important value addition for both for individuals who appear for it and for the institutions which promote them. And the last slide, I welcome you all to the next meeting of the Asia Pacific Society of Ophthalmic Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, which we will be hosting in New Delhi in September 26th to September 28th. And once again, I would like to thank all of you for being here, and thank David and Nicola for being here and for inviting me over to speak. If there are any questions, I'll be happy.
Would you like to take questions? Anybody's brave enough to put a question to Dr. Grover? We get a very good answer. Who's here interested in doing fellowships? Anybody interested in fellowships? I must say, I think certainly I look back on I sort of did one of the corporate fellowships, and both of them were absolutely terrific time in my life. And, extremely hard time. We were really broke, but we came back much better for it, and it's lasted all. That knowledge gain. It's really not go to, you'll find that your own system is pretty darn good in many ways. Because I went to the States and I thought everything's going to be terrific in the States. England is absolutely useless at everything in ophthalmology because how good a lot of your own things were or are. And that's a very great sort of eye-opener. Did you do a formal fellowship? Or did you go?
The apex institution in the country, I did my residency from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, where the concept of subspecialties developed probably the earliest in this country.
Yeah.
So, yeah, around 1970s, the subspecialty concept had picked up well, and the consultants were encouraged to stick to their own specialty only. So, when I did my 3 years residency training after post-graduation, which is called the senior residency, I was trained in the subspecialties which that unit represented, which happened to be oculoplastics, glaucoma, and ocular trauma.
Yeah.
So those are the interests which have persisted with me, and I received a very advanced training because there were very good specialists in those specialties. So although it was not a formal fellowship with any kind of curriculum as is now the norm, but it was one of the best hands-on.
I was going to say, roll your sleeves up and get on with it.
A structured program where maybe I was not introduced to, say, cadaver dissections on orbit or eyelids or something, but it was one of the best hands-on training programs under the guidance of some of the best surgeons that one could get. So those kind of training was really pleased to develop very well. And it was that one role model which brought about all the other hospitals, and then the Shankar Nethralaya came, then the LV Prasad and Alvin came. So those really brought in the culture of subspecialties here. And I think India has benefited immensely from an early introduction of the concept of subspecialty. And that's why you see the raised hands when you talk about subspecialties.
But India, I think, is the only country that has ophthalmological subspecialty exams.
Yes.
Isn't that? That's the only country in the world.
We introduced the fellowship of an All India Collegium of Ophthalmology. We are going to have the 4th exam now. So it was one of the earliest where we could prepare the question banks and we could start having subspecialty exams. Of course, there are still a lot of work to be done in that area where we are still struggling with forming the formal curricula for all of them. But the exam has worked well. With a multiple choice question where pass percentage is only about 30%, with a cutoff at 70% marks, and then there is a face-to-face examination and an objectively structured clinical examination. So the system has worked reasonably well. Of course, still evolving, still with a lot of refinements that can be done in that. The new value addition is the ICO subspecialty curricula that have come up, which are going to form the basis of what we do as for the FICO exam. So now subcommittees have been made very recently to go into the ICO curricula for subspecialties that are now on the web and to adapt them for the exams that we hold here. So there's a lot to be taken from ICO and from the experience that we have gained in holding those first 3 examinations, where already about 170 people have been certified in subspecialty, out of which is a pass percentage of about 25 to 30% from those that appear.
It's tough for those who don't pass, but terrific for those who do.
I think the 2 main reasons why there is a huge upsurge in those who want to appear for ICO exams in India now is I'm really submerged with all the queries that we now get. Is the reason, I think one has been the group discounts that you've offered. I think that has made a major difference because it matters to candidates at this age what they are paying, and this has really helped them to. And secondly, they come together, and now almost all institutions, there are people who are interested and they talk to each other and they form groups and then they come together. And second is the interest in subspecialties and fellowship training abroad. So those two things are really helping. FICO also has helped.
Yes.
The acronym FICO which has come in, because that also matters to them.
I think the proper group ones, which actually dropped the price by about 25%, we took quite a big risk on that. But in fact, in the year that we did that, we had more candidates and actually we had more income. So it was a very successful, because our aim is to keep the price down all the time. We don't aim to make a profit. We hope to make a surplus, and the surplus is actually put into fellowships if there is one. And so keeping the price down, I think, has been. We've had one price rise of 5%. This year, the price went up by about sort of 2 or 3%, and but 3 years ago it went down by about 20%. So I think that's probably contributed that people realise that we try to. It's still expensive, not really. But it's most expensive for the poorest people. Unfortunately, you can't. Although they get the in Burkina Faso, if you take the poorest country in the world, they still have to pay about a half of what is a bit less than that actually of what's paid in India. So it's still very expensive for them. But we'll get there someday. I wonder if maybe I could just talk a bit about fellowships. I think we were going to do a presentation on how do you pass the exams for the trainees, but I think to put it in a nutshell is you start a year early, you work really hard, and you use a lot of common sense, not cleverness, and you will pass the exam. But since the fellowships are very much in people's mind, if I can give a quick presentation on that for about. So the fellowships are organised from Germany by Professor Gabel and Cordula Obermeier, and Professor Gabel's the director. Terribly small. I hope you can see that better than I can, I think. But basically, you can see in the sort of left column the year, the middle column, the number of applications. This is a very important slide, okay, because it makes you understand. And then on the right is the number awarded. So if you take 2013, there were 150 applications, but actually 91 of that 150 got a fellowship. So actually, if you put in a good application, you've got a very good chance of getting it. Most of the problem is that people sort of say, oh, I'll give it a go, and they don't really put an effort into it. And it's not just showing you're a clever doctor, but showing you're a good human being, a good all-round person, So including bits of personal information about your taste in music, whether you play a musical instrument, you're interested in reading or sport or doing archery as a sport or anything. Those things are all part of you, and showing that you've really gone to find out about what the fellowships are all about and where you're going to go and how you are going to benefit, how your institution is going to benefit, and hopefully how the host institution is going to benefit from your being there. Hosts like having trainees from overseas. Very interesting. And these are the hosts. They're from mostly around the world. I think the largest numbers from Europe, North America, and then a few elsewhere. And if you find somebody who you want to train with who's not in that, you can actually suggest a training centre. The fellows came from all over the place, from places that you've never heard of, maybe Uzbekistan, one, Rwanda, etc. So it's open to everybody. The big numbers of fellows come from India, you'd guess it. Unfortunately, India's been so successful that it's becoming more difficult for Indians, because you can't keep giving them only to Indians. You have to, because they put in the best applications, they're usually the best trained, and of course they speak English, which is is very helpful to many in many institutions. So, as an idea of where they come from, again, they come from all over, and then the main fellowships, the bulk of them, 60 or 70 a year, is the 3-month fellowships, and then there's 1-year fellowships, and then there's the AIOC 1-year subspecialty fellowship. These are much more difficult to get, but of course a 1-year fellowship is really can be a most valuable thing to have. Who's eligible? Well, you've got to have completed your training. It's preferable for you to be under 40 years of age, but obviously we can't stick to that because you might not have started ophthalmology till you're 35. There's plenty of those, or you might have been off on maternity leave for 6 times or whatever. You can't be expected to. You obviously still deserve a fellowship as much as anybody else. So it's not an absolute rule, but the idea, of course, is to get a young person, and then he's trained up for life. And you've got to go back home. This is not a way of exporting your person to emigrating. If you pass the ICO exams, you get points. I'll talk a bit about that later on. And so this is what you see. There's a directory on the website, on the International Council of Ophthalmology website fellowship section, and you find out what's on offer at the moment. So this is what I'll talk about, the steps. First of all, you've got to select where you want to go to, and then you have to go through the eligibility check. So you have to put online your personal information, qualification documents, etc., your motivation, what you expect, etc., etc. Do it in detail, but be concise and be honest about it, because you really don't seriously want to say you're just the most terrific guy and you've got a distinction in this and that, and then suddenly finds out that you haven't got it. You're finished. You'll be straight back home again. So be honest about it, but give your best of what you have. And then your eligibility is determined by the fellowships, and then you select your training centre. Then the host looks at you and sees if you've already contacted the host. Of course, that's terrific. And then it goes through the ICO Fellowships Committee, and you usually get an answer within a couple of months. So they try to get it out fairly quickly. So the things that are important: your qualifications, whether you've done research, teaching, international work, charity work. They describe it as application performance. Be meticulous, get it right, and include as much as you feel is relevant. And the relevance to your own institution, your own country. They're given out on a balanced geographical representation. So this is why it's difficult it can be more difficult for Indians, because other people are now applying. The Indians were the majority in the past, but now there's more competition. And then you have a points system to which the ICO exams contribute. So there are 70 points, given on the various features, and if you pass all the exams and do well in them, you can get up to 42%. So that's 30 up to 30 points. But you would expect, if you've done all the exams and you've passed, I think you would get about 20 points. So it's that's 20 out of 70 is quite a good start. And this the sort of thing, as I said, it's not just going to learn ophthalmology. It's to learn a bit about yourself, about other people's cultures, your own culture, your own medical culture, and to take part in doing things. So it's not just operating, it's really giving presentations, going to meetings, seeing how other people do it. They're not necessarily going to be better than your own institution, but they will have a different perspective. I think you usually try to choose somewhere that is better in this topic that you're interested in. And most of it, of course, is not very much hands-on. You can get hands-on fellowship. For 3 months, it's usually an observership, and you have to be quite a personality to get the best out of it. You have to give the best of yourself. And here you can see, there's just people who showing pictures being trained. Most people come back with having had a terrific experience. Not necessarily easy, but very, very interesting. They go to some very interesting places. And so now I thought we might just throw the floor open. And if anybody would like to talk a bit about the bit that we've missed out, come to our stand, which is PG40, and we'd be very happy to tell you how you can pass the exam. But it is, as I said, it's hard work getting down to it. So any questions about fellowships or exams from any of us, we'll try to answer you.
Can I ask them some
Yeah,
questions
absolutely.
before they ask questions? What would be your number one motivation for appearing in ICU exam? We said what we thought was the perspective. If you're thinking of appearing in ICU exam, what is the single most important determinant? Why would you like to do it? How do you think it helps you? Anybody? And then we can see if others agree with him or not. Is it, yeah. Come and speak here.
My name is Dr. Rajesh, sir. I am from SRM University. I appeared this exam for the first time in 2011. Basically, one of our assistant, Dr. Ramya Madam, she has cleared. Initially, initially when I joined the institute during my first year of residency, we are the first batch in our institute, so there is a little bit confusion about the academics. Like sir said, it will improve the academic standards also. So she suggested me to take up the exam, and it was me. I took the exam at that time. I don't know about the group information also, so I applied my application as a single application to the ICO center, and later all the information which was available in the website was very much pretty useful. And all the reference books, I got through all the reference books, and a few of the books which John Ferry's, what they suggest, that book is not available right now in the market here. I tried in many places, but I couldn't get that book in the market. It is only available in few old medical college libraries. It's there in Aravind, and some of my friends I just contacted, so I got through them a copy of that. So, and I cleared the exam with a good percentage, and I was happy, and I'm very grateful to my madam who suggested. And I also even suggested to my colleagues and juniors, and I made them to write in this year also.
What's the motivation?
Motivation. How would it help you? Why did you think?
The exam after the first year, the approach towards the patient, the points which in a glaucoma patient, what is the main thing to see? So in all the clinical examination perspective, superior to to the same batch, other PGs, I felt I'm a little bit above in my academics in going through that.
So it is the self-esteem which you feel that you've done well, that you've proved yourself. Other points of what they felt was the most important, single most important reason for them to appear in the ICU exam.
Can I add something, sir? Like what he mentioned, like encouragement by the successful seniors. That's the best.
But motivational objective, what do you want to achieve when you appear for this exam?
We are almost nearing the time.
Yeah.
Few more seconds.
Let's hear that.
Fellowships.
Pardon?